Hi, this is Alimayo Arango of littleguycgi.com, and today I would like to show you a tutorial on how to make a quick and simple animated scene. Okay, if this is your first time in Blender, I recommend you go to File, User Preferences, go to Input, and then choose Select with left click. Blender's default select is with right click, and this may confuse you if you're coming from Adobe or other 3D programs. Also, while you're in here, click on Add-ons, and make sure you have a check mark next to these different add-ons. You want to have a check mark next to this one, import images as planes. You also want to have a check mark next to the Mesh F2, Mesh Inset Polygon, Mesh Loop Tools, and also Mesh Relax. And with this being Blender 2.72, I have the Pie Menu official add-on activated also. So if you want to follow along and use the new options of Blender 2.72, just put a check mark right here, and the tabs that I'll cover them briefly in a moment. But to have those when you hit the tab key pop up, you need to have Blender 2.72 and just have a check mark right here. Okay, this is my first tutorial using 2.72, and one of the cool things they add is before, pretty much you would hit the tab key, you would go into edit mode, or if you were in edit mode, it would take you back in object mode, or you could also click here and you can still do that. However, with the tab key, what you can do is you can hit tab, and now this pops up. Your different options that your different Blender modes pop up. And when I first started using this, I thought it was very cool. I liked the graphical look of it. But then to switch to edit mode, I would click here, and then I would switch to object mode, and I was like, oh, before I could just hit tab, let go of the button, and that would be automatically in there. So then I started saying, I don't know how good this is. However, I realized that I wasn't using it the right way. And so basically, instead of going tab, edit, hit tab, it opens, and then move your mouse and click object mode, what you want to do is hit tab, and then right after you hit tab, quickly move your mouse to that direction. And that way you don't have to click. So you see that right there? So it's kind of like if you know the direction, like I know that object mode's here. So I hit tab, and right after I hit tab, I move my mouse in this direction, and I hit tab for edit mode. If you miss it, you just click it, but it's actually very quick, to sculpt mode and, back and forth. But let me, just very cool, just so you know about it. You don't have to have this tab menu set up. You can't, if you don't click that add-ons that I showed you at the bottom, it'll be like the regular Blender mode that you're probably used to and you've seen in other tutorials that I've done, if you've seen other tutorials of mine. But I do think that this is definitely going to be an advantage for all of us Blender users in the future, and just the speed. As you go through these models, you realize that 2 seconds or 3 seconds actually adds up amongst the thousands of clicks. So anyway, this is 2.72. Here's the Pie menu, and this is what I'm going to be using most likely from now on in my tutorials. Okay, and after all of that talk, now let's get to it. So what this tutorial is actually going to be about today is, this isn't going to be a low poly, as in the common low poly style tutorial where everything is set up to be low poly. This basically is going to be a quick environment where you can, some of the different things that I've made in these tutorials. If you followed them, you've made with me. Just a quick environment where you could take ships and tanks and have them in an environment to move around with. So that's kind of what we're about to do here. We're going to put some trees in, but they're not going to be like the low poly art style trees. We're actually going to use transparent PNGs is how we're going to do it. So with that said, now, and I said let's get started before, now let's finally actually get started to this thing. And the cool thing is this is pretty quick, so let's do it. Okay, there's one more thing I do need to cover before we get started, and that is that with all of the cool things that have been added to Blender 2.72, one of the things that has been taken away is the screen keycast add-on that used to be in Blender, and pretty much what showed right here was built into Blender. It would display the keys, And since the keys are very important, particularly for people who are beginners, I'm going to be using this program that I found to show the screencast keys, which would let you see what I'm pressing. So this was the best thing I could find, as of now. So what I'll try to do is just move this around if it tends to get in the way. You guys let me know what you think about this. If you know of another one you would rather see me use, or if it's too big or too obtrusive, let me know. All right, thanks guys. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is with the cube selected is we're going to hit X to bring up the delete menu. We're going to delete the cube. We're then going to hit either Shift A to bring in the plane. You can also go to here to, this is the create tab, and just select plane from here. So we'll hit tab to bring up our multiple options. We'll just choose edit. Then we'll hit S to scale. And you're just going to scale your plane up to about the size of the grid. Okay, now with that done, what you're going to do is you're going to hit W to bring up your specials menu. You're going to go to subdivide. You're going to click subdivide. You're going to keep hitting W to bring up the subdivide. You're going to do 2, hit W again, subdivide 3, W again, subdivide 4, W again. So it's going to be 5 times that you subdivide. Okay, now right after you subdivided, without clicking anything else, you're going to go to this menu right here, to your subdivide menu. You're going to scroll down and you're going to look to see this option, where you see this option says fractal. So you're just going to click and hold here. And basically you can see once I get up to about 1.3, you start to get this rough terrain look, and that's what we want. So I have mine at 1.290. And you just want that, kind of non-smooth look to the terrain. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hit A to deselect. With our vertices select on, we're going to select about here, hold shift and select about here. We're going to hit O to turn on our proportional editing tool. We're going to hit G to activate our move tool. And when we hit G, we can see our area of influence there. That's what that circle is. When I roll my mouse wheel one direction, it increases it. When I roll the other wheel, it decreases it. I'm going to hit Z. See the preview line there showing which way we can pull? We can pull straight up. So I'm going to pull straight up, and as I'm pulling straight up, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to increase the area of influence. Then I'm just going to grab right here, and I'm going to hit G and then Z to push this down just a little bit, just so there's two... So there's a little bit of variation between these two hills or mountain type, terrain pieces here. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to hit Tab to bring up our different mode options. We're going to go into object mode. We're then going to hit Shift A to bring up our create menu. We're going to go to mesh, and then we're going to bring in another plane. Okay, we're then going to hit Tab to bring up our mode options again. Choose edit. And we're just going to take a manipulator. Whoops. Hit Control Z. I'm going to turn off this proportional edit tool. And we're just going to bring this plane down over this area. We're going to hit S to scale. Move it up a little bit. About like that. And I'll move it up so you can see it clearly. Okay, this plane is going to turn into our little cityscape that we're making here. So we're going to hit W to bring up our specials menu. We're going to choose subdivide. If your fractal is not on 0, because most of the time when I make this terrain and I come in, my fractal will be set like this. So if you come in here and you see, like, you make this plane and it's a separate object and you're like, why is this thing bent? Why is it not flat? It's because you have to go to your fractal mode here in your subdivision menu and just turn it down to 0, and then your plane will be flat. So what we're going to do is hit W again, choose subdivide again. So that's our second subdivide. Here's our third, our fourth, and I'm trying to decide if I want to keep it on the fourth one. And yes, I think we just want 4 subdivisions for this section. Okay, so now what we're going to do is with our vertices select on. I just see how this manipulator is in the way. I just click here just to move it over there. temporarily, then I'll click to the center, which is where I want my vertices selected at. Now I'm going to hit 0 to turn my proportional edit tool back on. I'm going to hit G and then Z. And you can see there's my blue preview line showing me where my preview is going to go at. I'm going to take this up like this. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel, and I just want each part of these faces to be generally bent enough to be facing another direction. When I say facing another direction, what I mean is facing, another direction than the face that's right next to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to face select. We're going to choose all of the faces by selecting A. Now we're going to hit X to bring up a delete menu, and then we're going to choose limited dissolve. And what limited dissolve does is it basically, the purpose for what it's doing for us is it's taking that grid pattern away from us, and it's giving us variation. So by looking at this limited dissolve menu that pops up right after you pressed limited dissolve, what we're going to do is just click here, and you can see as we click, it's giving us variations that we're going to use. And I kind of like here, and basically if we go all the way down to 0, this is, this grid pattern. It's, fairly boring. Everything's, pretty much the same. We click up to 2, and we can see that we have variations in it. This gives us a nice bunch of faces to make our cityscape out of. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit O to turn off our proportional edit tool. We're going to hit S to scale on the Z axis, and then 0 to flatten out this cityscape. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to select the areas that we want to be buildings. So we're going to hit A to deselect. We're going to hit C to bring up paint select. So I like these variation right here. I can imagine these being buildings here. I'm going to actually I don't have to hold shift because I'm in paint select. I'm going to select this row right here. If there's faces you selected that you don't want, just hold your middle mouse button. You can deselect. I think I'm going to deselect these here. I'm going to right click so I can zoom in. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hit C, and I'm going to select this next row here. I'll push the middle mouse button to deselect there, and this will give me some space in between these buildings here. Just pushing with the middle mouse button to deselect there. And you can just imagine a street coming down this way. I'm going to hold shift, select there. I'll select here. Select these right here. I'm just holding shift, selecting these faces, and I'm just selecting which things I pretty much want to be, what I think of buildings. So I'm going to deselect here so there's space in between here. I think I'll select here, here. I'll select that. You can do variations on how you want things to be. So now that you generally just select what you think of as what you would want for your possible buildings. I think I'm going to select here as well. Okay, and once you have the areas which are basically going to be turned into your building areas, what you're going to do is you're going to press Alt E to bring up your extrude menu. Then you're going to choose individual faces. Now you're going to left click immediately after choosing individual faces. You then push pull or anything else. You're now going to go right here. This is Blender's pivot point menu. When you click here, it brings up your pivot point menu anyway. Blender's normal pivot point is medium point. You want to turn this to individual origins. And now with that turn to individual origins, you're going to hit S to scale. And what this does is this allows us to have space in between the building areas that we want. So you'll just scale down till you get as much distance as you pretty much want between the different buildings, and just judge your scale of your buildings as imagine these being like mountains right here. So what you're going to do now is with those areas selected, you're just going to pull up just slightly here, just to give them a little teeny bit of area above the ground. Then you're going to hit E to extrude on the Z-axis. Up, I already had it. Z-axis, you can see all the preview lines there. And you're just going to pull straight up. And it's kind of like, that's why I thought it was pretty cool. You have kind of like a, automatic city here. So you set your height. Pretty much I would say set your height for like the tallest buildings that you want. Then with face select still selected, you're just going to select certain buildings, and you're just going to take the top and you're just going to push them down a little bit to give you some variations in your buildings. And I saw a very cool tutorial by Andrew Price, and he had like very detailed buildings, and that tutorial's on there if you're interested in making cities. I mean, he goes over individual pieces on the buildings and all that. However, it involved particle systems and all this other stuff. So when I came up with this, I kind of was like, I'd like to do something like very quick. I could put together a scene, have something for people to run around in. Nothing particularly, complicated or too complicated that I thought that would give you, a basic environment to play with. So here I'm just pushing down these buildings, just imagining them, being buildings and them being their different heights. And then once we have our, enough variation in height set up, wrong thing, Control Z. Yeah, I'm just giving different, variations. So once we have that, we're going to hit A to select everything. We're going to push this down so it's like sitting pretty much on this ground plane here. Just roll my middle mouse button, holding the mouse button to zoom around. And when I look at this, I had images. I was talking to Eric the other day, one of the viewers of this tutorial, and I asked him if he thought this would be a cool idea to do. I told him I found out a pretty cool idea how to make a quick cityscape, and he was talking about I had done a tutorial on a capital ship, and he was saying that he made a joke that when he was making the capital ship that he could hear the music of like Imperial music from Star Wars playing. But anyway, thinking of that, I can imagine like ships coming by, flying through this mountain, going to the cityscape, just something for you to have a quick environment to play with. We're not done yet, but just taking a look at it now, and for what it's worth so far, I like it. So let's continue. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hit A to select the city. We're going to lift this up. We're going to hit Shift D. I hold my middle mouse button just to turn. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to pull the duplicate. I hit Shift D, so I made a duplicate. I'm now going to hit S to scale on the Z-axis 0 to flatten this out. And you can see there's all the stuff right there. Stuff being the faces. I'm going to hit X, bring up our delete menu. I'm going to go to dissolve faces just to get this back to being a regular plane again. Then I'm going to hit E to extrude on the Z-axis and pull this up. So if it's wobbly, just hit Z and it'll lock in that preview so that you'll just move on the Z. Then I have this top selected. I'm now going to choose to press. I'm going to choose to press Control L and select the entire thing, and then I'm going to put this down here just so we have something for this city to sit on. Let me make this a little bit lower. So in Blender, if you select one piece of something, then you hit Control L, you'll select the rest of it. So just push this down just a little bit more. I'm going to select one building here. I'm going to choose Control L, and we're just going to put the city right on top of this foundation here, like so. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to bring some trees in, or bring a tree in and duplicate it so it looks like trees. That's why I wanted to say at the beginning of this tutorial, though this is generally low poly, we're not going for quote-unquote a low poly style. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-click wherever our 3D cursor is at is where in new objects will come into Blender. We're then going to go to File, Import, and then we're going to go to Images as Planes. And the tree I have here is you can to get a tree, you can either go to Google and download a transparent tree. That's just a tree on a transparent background. When you're looking for files inside of Blender, see how you can't see the image. If you click right here, it looks like these 4 boxes. You'll be able to see what you're actually looking at. With your tree selected, before you click Import Images as Planes, scroll down. Make sure that you have Use Alpha selected, Alpha Mode Straight, Z Transparency, Receive Transparent Shadows, and DPI all selected. You got that? So when you're going to File, Import Images as Planes, find your image, make sure this is checked, use Alpha, Straight, make sure you have Z Transparency selected, check mark next to Receive Transparent Shadows, and DPI. After all that is done, and with your image selected, now you click Import Images as Planes. When the image comes in, it'll look like it didn't come in because the image typically comes in extremely small. So what I'm actually going to do is hit Tab. I'm going to go into the edit mode of the image. I'm then going to hit S to scale. Just pull out. S to scale again. So now you can see it. I'm going to blow it up big so you can see what we're looking at. Okay, now I'm going to hit R to rotate on the X-axis 9, 0. Left click to lock in. I'm going to take the manipulator and pull this up a little bit more. Okay, now what we're going to do is hit N to bring up our properties menu. We're going to go to Display. We're going to go to Shading. You're going to change this shading from multi-texture to GLSL. Then you're going to choose Textured Solid. And once that's there, now you can see there is the tree there. So I'm going to take the tree, I'm going to push it down. I'm actually going to put it next to a building so we can get a sense of how we want the scale of this thing to be. So I'm going to hold control with my middle mouse button. I'm going to push in to get a smooth pan. Obviously we don't want the tree as big as a building. So what we're going to do is hit S to scale. Scale this tree down. Pretty small. And let me put the tree over here. One of the things you can do, like if you want to more, let me hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in again. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan up. Hold control and push the middle mouse button in again. If you want to have this tree look more 3D, even though it's a transparent background, let me give you an idea of what this kind of will look like. Because basically when it renders, you won't see the box. You'll just see like the tree. So what I'm going to do is, here's our camera here, right? So what I'm going to do is to get the camera to be to this view is I'm going to press Control, hold Control, then Alt, and then 0 on the number keypad. And what that did was that made the camera come right to this view right here. Now what I'm going to do is with this properties menu still open, I'm going to go up and see where it says lock camera to view. I'm going to click here, and this allows me to move the camera like I'm moving the regular viewport. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm on the mouse button and just pan down just a little bit. I'm going to hold control and pull back a little. Hold shift and pan up a little. Pan back a little bit by holding, I'm holding control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. Okay, and now since we're going to actually stay in the Blender renderer, what we're going to do is we're going to click here, turn this, here's the render button, so we're on the button all the way over to the left. With this selected, you're going to click this image editor, you're going to choose new window, you're then going to go to here, which gives us our world options, and we're going to turn on ambient occlusion. Okay, and just so you can see how this tree fits into the world, we'll click render here, select render image. You get a quick little thing. I mean, it's for a quick effect, it's not bad. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll unclick this lock camera to view. I'm going to hold my middle mouse button, turn to the side. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button and push in and get a smooth pan in. If you wanted this tree to be a little bit more 3D looking, even though it is a flat plane, what you could actually do is hit Shift D to duplicate the tree. So I do this a lot of times just to make sure I know I have a duplicate. I right click to get it to lock back in place. Now I'm going to hit R to rotate on the Z axis 9, 0. And now you can see that kind of, it has a little bit more 3D-ness to it. For the purpose of this tutorial though, I'm fine, as I show you guys, I'm fine with just the trees being, the transparent plane. But just so you know, you can do that. So I'm just going to hit Shift D and duplicate these. Let me change this back to Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point. Okay, I'm going to just hit Shift D, spread these trees out a little bit more. I'm actually going to hold Shift and select these trees. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate them. Take my manipulator and just spread them out a little bit more. Go ahead, Shift D, maybe put some over here. Hit S to scale to make them smaller. Holding Shift and middle mouse button to pan. Just roll with the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm holding Shift and the middle mouse button to pan again. I'm going to hit A to deselect, C to paint select just to grab these, to move them in here. Okay, I'm holding Shift and middle mouse button to pan. Click here so I can rotate off of that tree. I'm just taking another look at the city. I'm going to hit Control, Alt, and then 0 to bring my camera view to here. I'm going to click this lock camera view again. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom out. Then I'm going to just take another look. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unclick this lock camera to view. I'm going to right click right here. I'm going to hit Tab to go to object mode. I'm going to zoom back some, and now what I'm going to do is hit Shift A. I'm going to bring in a UV sphere. As soon as you bring in your UV sphere, you have your options right here for your UV sphere. I'm going to change this to from 32 to 64 for the segments, and for the rings, I'm going to change this to 32. Okay, now what I'm going to do is hit Tab, select Edit Mode. I'm going to hit S to scale. Scale this up. Now you don't have to, but I sometimes have issues when I'm using the screen capture where if I get to the end of the screen, I scale too much. So anyway, we're just scaling this up so we, pretty much have our little cityscape inside of this cube, like so. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to hit 1 to go into front perspective. And just so you know, now it used to be that you would have to use the number keypads. You didn't have to, but typically I would use the number keypads for changing my view, and you still can do that, but there's also multiple options now. So if you're on a laptop, you don't have to be, it's a lot easier for you if you're on a laptop. You can click here for navigation. With the navigation, you can just click front, left, right, top. Very cool. So now, not only do you have these navigation keys to get around to your different views with, but with Blender 2.72, you also can hit Q. And when you hit Q, you have these other, these options. So you can now hit Q and very quickly, get around to your different views inside of Blender. So it's like, man, Blender 2.72, so many things in here that are just new, cool, and just as far as getting around Blender. I mean, Blender typically is just gets better and better, but yeah, just very cool. All the new navigation options. Anyway, with this, okay, we're in left view, so I'm actually going to hit Q, and we'll go to front view. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit A to deselect. This is another thing with Blender 2.72. You hit Z. Before, Z used to automatically take you into wireframe. Now you get these different options right here. So I'll just choose a wireframe from that option. I'll hit B for box select. I'll grab right here. And then with these selected, I had face select on when I grabbed that. I'm going to hit X. Okay, and now with that done, what I'm going to do is hit A to select everything here. I'm going to grab this triangle looking thing right here, pull to the side. I'm going to click right here, turn this to UV image editor. I'm then going to hit U. Actually, no, sorry. I'm going to hit Q, and then choose top. I'm now going to hit or press U to bring up my unwrap menu. Move this down to the side. And I'm going to select project from view. Okay, so now we have our project from view over here and our UV image. And we're doing this so we can put a sky. That's the whole thing. I don't think I said it. Just so we look at our cityscape, we can, zoom around inside their cameras and everything else and be able to see a sky in the distance rather than, just gray or something like that. So anyway, you have your UV, you stretch it out like that. Okay, now with that done, what I'm going to do is quickly take you into GIMP. And if by some chance you don't know what GIMP is a... I didn't even think about this. Look at that. My screen key is even good for GIMP as well. This thing is actually not too bad. Anyway, GIMP is a free image editor. Most people use Photoshop. A lot of times people trash GIMP. I don't know why. I went to school for graphic design. I taught graphic design as a graphic design teacher. I have Photoshop sitting right next to me. Get the difference between GIMP and Photoshop. Most of the time when I speak to people, I say GIMP, Photoshop. To me, it's interchangeable. GIMP, Photoshop is the king of image editors. However, GIMP is pretty darn close. Like I said, about 4 feet over from you have a Mac with Photoshop on it. Yeah, for just its personal preference, I'd rather use GIMP. Anyway, without letting me go on and on about that. Basically, what you want to do now is you have a GIMP. I know what I'm saying, but GIMP, you can download GIMP for free. GIMP is like having Photoshop. Even if you use Photoshop, I would recommend that you take GIMP, go to portableapps.com and download a portable apps version just so you have an image editor if you end up at another computer. Here in Photoshop, there you go. Here in GIMP, I'm going to hold Control and I'm going to roll my mouse wheel, and you can see here is a sky texture that I got from Google, and you can just grab a sky texture like this. And what you're going to want to do with this sky texture, once you have it loaded into GIMP, and you would just download it, file, open it in GIMP to get it in here. Once you have it in here, you make sure you have your layer selected. You go to filters, and then you want to go down to distort, and then you want to go to polar coordinate. So you select here, and then you can see that GIMP is showing us a preview of what's going to happen, and you can see it's taking the sky, the image texture for the sky, and set it up very nicely for us to bring this over into Blender for our sky dome. Okay, now the image that we're going to be bringing this into, Blender's default image is 1024 by 1024 as far as its dimension. So what we're going to do in GIMP is we're going to go to File, New. We're going to change width to 1024. 1024. For higher quality, you would make it 2048. We'll use this for now. Sorry, I was on the other screen doing this, so we put 1024, 1024, so we'll click OK. Okay, so now we have this separate image in GIMP, so now we'll select on this image here, and what we're going to do is go to our rectangular marquee, grab here around our image, hit Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste into, and then click your Create New Layer button. We'll hide this right here. And what we're going to do with this layer selected, we're going to hit Select, Edit, Copy, go over to this tab where we made our 1024 by 1024, which is the same as the Blender size that we need. Now we'll select, Edit, Paste into, and then we'll click this new layer button So now we have the image in here, and now that we have that, what we're going to do is hit select file, export as. We'll export this as a JPEG, and then mine's just saying replace because I was working on this tutorial earlier, so I'll hit select export, and now we'll go back to Blender. Okay, here in Blender, what we're going to do is we're going to go to image, open image, and we're just going to open that GIMP image that we exported out. So I'm going to roll my middle mouse button here. I'm going to hit S to scale. And I'll just take my my UV so it's just slightly outside of the image from GIMP. Actually learned how to do this from Blender Arsenal. He's got some good tutorials on his YouTube channel. And then now, with that done, we'll hit A here to deselect. We'll hit Z to go back to solid, and we can see the UV map is showing our sky dome here. So now I'm going to hit Q, and I'm going to go actually into front view. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit a tab, go into select object mode, select the camera. I'm just going to push the camera in. I'm actually going to click here, turn this to 3D view. I'll hit Z here, turn this back to solid view. Then I'll hit 0 on my number keypad to go into camera view. And let me hit a tab to take that away. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to control the camera here. There we go. Okay, so now what we'll do is we will hit N to bring up our properties menu. We'll choose lock camera to view, select N to make that go away. Then we'll rotate with the camera to see the sky. We'll hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan down. Then I'll hold the middle mouse button just to pan up. And you can see these squares right here. We'll deal with that now. We'll select here. We'll hit tab. We'll go into edit mode. We'll press A to select everything. And then we'll hit W to bring up our specials menu. We'll select shade smooth. So now the squares will be gone. And to get this thing to look brighter, what we're going to do is we're going to go to materials, select new, and then we're going to come down to shading and select shadeless. And now we can see we have kind of like this white barrier right here. You can see it right there also. What we'll do is we'll hit S to scale, make it bigger, and then we'll just push the sky dome down a little bit. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll hold our middle mouse button here. We'll pull to the side. We'll select textures. We'll click new here. Blender 2.72 automatically selects the image or movie there. We'll click here, and we can see here's our sky texture for dome here. So we can either click here, this arrow here, or you can go to open and actually search for your image. I'm going to select here. And you want to make sure your coordinate says UV, which it does. Okay, now with the sky dome for the most part set up, we don't really need this view anymore here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to click here. Then we're going to hit 0 on our number pad here. So I'm actually going to roll back. I'm going to go into object mode, and I'm actually going to select, let's name our objects to make things easier on ourselves. So here is the sky dome. So we'll click here, we'll name this sky dome. Enter, we'll select the city. Right now it's called plane.001. We'll click this, double click there, and name this city. We have our transparent trees are named. We'll click the ground. We'll name this ground plane. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hold our middle mouse button, turn to the side, roll our mouse wheel back so we can see the sky dome. We're going to select the sky dome. We're going to select this eye to make the sky dome be hidden temporarily. We're going to roll our mouse wheel in. I'm going to hold shift in the middle mouse button to pan in. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click right towards the middle of the city. We're going to make sure we're in object mode. We're going to hit shift A to bring in an empty. I'm going to select empty first, then cube. And there's the empty right there. The reason why we brought the empty in was to be able to control our camera more easily. An empty is a non-renderable object. It is very useful when you're doing in 3D. So what we're going to do is select the camera first. We're going to hold shift and then we're going to select the empty. We're then going to hit control T. We're going to choose our make track menu pops up from pressing control T. We're going to choose track to constraint. Remember this command, extremely useful when setting up scenes, extremely useful. So we're going to choose track to constraint. And now basically what will happen, I'll show you this. If I grab here, and if I hit, I'm going to hit a T, I'm going to hit 0. So we have the camera view here. I'm rolling my mouse wheel in to zoom in. So now when I select the camera, you see that? Wherever I move the camera to, the camera automatically stays aimed at that empty. So suppose we want this camera to look up. What we would do is just take the empty and move the empty up. Wherever this empty goes, the camera will focus on it. So extremely useful when setting up scenes. Just, bringing in the empty, selecting the camera, selecting the empty, holding shift, selecting the camera, selecting the empty, and then control T. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to put some materials very quickly on here. So we'll click here, we'll click here and materials. So we'll click here, we'll select the material tab, we'll click new, take our scroll wheel here, scroll down some, we'll change this diffuse to a greenish color. We'll select the city, we'll hit the tab key, we'll go to edit mode. I'm going to hold shift in the middle mouse button to pan. And what we want is the streets here, right? So an easy way to do this is we'll select here, one face here. We'll then hit shift G. The shift G is the select similar, brings up the select similar menu. So with that one piece of street selected, we'll select coplanar or planar, and we can see it selects all of these street tiles right here. So now with those selected, we'll take our bar here, and what we're going to do is we're going to click new. We're going to click this plus and hit new again just to make sure we're not changing the material of the buildings. We're fine with them. We're going to take this scroll bar and scroll down a little bit. We'll just make it a slightly different gray. And then once you have that, what you want to do is make sure you click assign. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to select tab, select object mode. We're going to select here. We're going to select tab again and go into edit mode. We're going to hit A to select everything. We're going to go to W for our specials menu. And we're going to choose shade smooth. So we're going to hit tab, go back to object mode. I'm going to click here and turn this back to solid mode, just to make it easier to see. Okay, so we have our little world created here, and once you have this little world to play with, you can set up scenes. Now the fun starts. For instance, one of the things that I had said to Eric when I was talking about making this tutorial was an invasion scene. So let's do a quick version of that. Control Z. To grab that. We're gonna take this camera and we're just going to get a decent viewpoint, of the city. Now what we're going to do is we're going to right click here. We're going to hit shift A, make sure you're in object mode. We're going to bring in another camera. And what we're going to do is we want this camera to be aiming from here up. So I'll right click here. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to bring in an empty. I'll bring in another cube. I'll shrink it down. And what I'm going to do is take this camera. So this is our, whenever you see this little triangle, this means this is the active camera. All right, so I'm going to take this camera here. I'm going to hit R to rotate on the Z axis. And see how this camera has the orange, outline on it, or it's glowing orange. So we know we're selected on this object. We're going to hold Shift, select this empty, select Control T, and then track to constraint just like we did before with the other camera. And what we can do with this camera is we can select this camera, then we can choose Control number pad 0, and now this camera is the active camera. Second, zoom in here. So here's the other camera. Let me go to the side so you can see what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is, this is the camera behind the hills. I'm going to take this. We can see the viewport right here. Wait a second. So we're just going to aim this up. Take this empty and move it so that this camera is kind of looking up past the city, like below it. And I'll show you why this is pretty cool. So we just use our empties to, and we can name, you can name your empties to make it easier. So we kind of have a, I want like a side. There we go. Like kind of like the mountains in the city for this camera here. Okay, now I'm going to hold Shift to the middle mouse button. I'm going to click here because I'm going to bring another object in, or a couple objects in. So wherever your 3D cursor is, where objects come into the world in Blender. So I'm going to go to File, Append, and I am going to grab, let's see, wait a second, temp, my Alex Otten capital ship and fighter group. So now that's come in here, and basically this is a capital ship that I made in another tutorial with a bunch of fighters that I also show how to make in another tutorial. I'll put a link up for that. Basically what I have is, I have the fighters and the ship are all connected to this empty. So I use the empty to control all of them. So if I select the empty, I can just hit G and then Z to move the ship up. I can select R to rotate on the Z axis, and I can just spin all of the fighters and the capital ship at the same time. And what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to get a good kind of invasion shot angle here. And you see how this angle is kind of like dramatic. Here's the ships, the fighters and all looking up at it. It's kind of hard to see there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to right click to put the 3D cursor here. I'm going to select Shift A and then bring another camera in. You can see the camera popped in right there. I'm going to take my manipulator and pull the camera back some. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to select Shift A. I'm going to bring yet another empty in. Another cube, I'll shrink it down. And I'm going to select this camera. hold shift and select the empty just like before. I'm going to choose Control T, and then my make track menu pops up. I'm going to choose track to constraint. So now this camera is aiming at that empty. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to select this camera. I'm going to choose Control and then 0 on the number pad key to make this the active camera. And I'll go to this window here and hit 0 so we can see. I'll hold the middle mouse button here, and then I'm going to use that. This camera is going to aim at that empty. So what I'm going to do is use this camera to give kind of a third person viewpoint of the capital ship. And if I want to move the view even more, so I can, I can just go back and forth between the empty and the camera to get the view to be how I want it to be. I kind of want the camera to be looking down on the capital ship, on the city. That's what I'm doing right now. I want to hit Shift Space so it takes up. So there's the viewport, and I kind of like that viewport point. So when I choose Shift Space again to go back, I'm going to take the camera back. A little bit more. Okay, let me click and name this the capital ship camera. And I want one more camera setup. What I'm doing here is just setting up for a little very quick animated scene, or it could even be just a scene of pictures. I'm going to grab one of these ships here. I'm going to hit Shift A. Whoops, not Shift A, sorry. I'm going to hit Shift S to bring up my cursor to selected screen. And then what I'm going to do is hit Shift A now to bring in the camera. And I'm just going to take the manipulator and push this camera back. I'm actually going to hit S to scale to make the camera appear smaller. And for this, I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to aim it. I'm going to use the empty of the ship for this camera to aim to. So with the camera selected, I'm going to hold Shift, select the empty, then I'm going to hit Control T, and I'm going to choose Track to Constraint. I'm going to select this camera and I'm going to name this small ship camera. Okay, now with all of that stuff set up, what we're going to do is I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button. I'm going to go back to this camera. I'm going to press Control number pad 0 so we can see from this viewpoint. All right, so I like that view. So we're on frame 1 of the timeline here. So what we're gonna do is pretty much the whole animation is just basically gonna be this ship just coming into view. I'm actually gonna click this up to 500. Blender's default in frame is 250. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start this ship. They'll say 400. So I'm moving the timeline to frame 400, and I'm going to grab this main empty that's controlling the capital ship and the little small ships. I'm going to press I to bring up my insert keyframe menu, and I'm going to choose location rotation. And now I'm going to take this take this to frame 20. And basically, I want the ending frame to end up like this. So by starting at the end before the beginning, we know that it'll end up right here. Okay, so now we're going to use this menu or this window to position the ship. So we'll take our manipulator and we'll push it back. Maybe we'll even lower it down some. So it's very slowly it's going to come up. It's almost hidden there. So now we're going to press I, choose location, rotation, scale. So now when we move our timeline, just holding the right mouse button, the ship, very, very slowly, the capital ship and the fighters come into view there. Okay, and now let's what we're going to do is we are going to bring our sky dome back. I'm going to hit the render button, render image right here, just to see if it's big enough, and it looks like there it's good. See how it looks back here. We'll hit render image. Okay, so what we're going to do, so we have this main animation here, right, where the ship is moving in, and the reason why we place these cameras, I'm going to hide the sky dome again. The reason why we placed the cameras was I'm going to hit 0 to go to camera viewpoint. So the first view that I want is this view, right? So now I want this view here to start off, so we'll go from frame 0 to maybe 80, and we have we're at 24 frames a second. So what we're going to do with this camera being the camera that's currently looking at this view, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to hit M to put a marker down. Actually, we have to make sure we're over. Let me expand this up slightly. Make sure you're over the timeline indicator, and you'll hit M. And you'll see this marker was put down. And what this marker is doing is allowing us to, setting up the ability for us to have the ability to change the camera. So what we're actually going to do is take this back to beginning. We're going to hit M again, so we have a marker there. And then with this camera selected and with that marker selected, we're going to select Control B. And what that did is we bound this camera to this marker. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this marker here. And when we get to this marker, see how it jumps up? That's kind of cool. The marker jumps up to let you know that you're over it. Okay, so what we want to happen now is we want the camera to switch its, we want the timeline to have the scene switch to another camera. So what I'm going to do is select this camera here. I'm going to choose Control number pad 0 to see the view of this camera, and that's how I want it to switch. So this camera, we can see it selected there. It's the viewport point that I want. So I'm just going to come out with that camera selected. I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to select this marker right here. Then with the mouse over this timeline, I'm going to choose Control B to bind the camera to that marker. So what happens now is we have this marker first. The capital ship is coming. Then we switch to this view here. The timeline automatically switches it because of those markers. Now what I want to happen is I want it to switch to this camera, which is the capital ship camera. So what I'm going to do is I am going to select that camera. I'm going to choose Control 0 to make that camera. Is that the right camera? Yeah, this camera. To look at the capital ship. Oops. Circle. There we go. So I want this camera to look at the capital ship coming in. I'm trying to get it at an angle where it doesn't there we go. Where it doesn't show like the ground cutting off. I don't know how well you can see. I'm going to try to zoom in to make it so you can see this better. Thank you for putting up with me, people. I know this is a strange tutorial. It's all over the place. Anyway, okay, so now I have I wanted to switch to this camera for here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M. So I put another marker. When I hit M, this F137 popped up. And now with this selected and that marker selected, because I just made it, I'm going to choose Control B. So now this scene, this part is bound to this part, to this particular scene, or this particular, when I say scene, I mean camera. This viewport of the camera is going to show at this particular time on the timeline. So when I take the timeline back, if you look here, so here's the marker 1. So now we scroll and it goes to the other camera. Now we come back here. It scrolls to this camera of the capital ship coming in. I think I'll let that come in with all the fighters to there. So now I want the camera to switch again. So what I'm going to do is hit M to put a marker in. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Select here. Okay, so now I'm going to select this camera. Again, I'm going to choose Control 0. Now, to hit Control 0 isn't necessary to bind the camera to here. I just do that just to make sure that it's looking at what I want it to look at. I just rolled far back just so I could easily see what's going on. Now I'll hold Control in the middle mouse button. I'll zoom in. Alright, so with this camera selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this camera selected and this is selected here. So what I'll do is hit Control B. And from hitting Control B, that was my screencast key making that noise, not a mess up. So now you should see, okay, it switches from this viewport, or viewpoint, to this camera, to this camera, and then finally, oh, it didn't do it. I must have did something wrong. Okay, with this camera selected here, this camera selected, and here. Maybe I wasn't over the timeline when I choose Control B again. There it goes. I must have, I don't know. But anyway, so we come back. So we have this camera. The ship's coming. Now we got Alex's capital ship is coming into view over the city. And now we have the view, looking up. Capital ship coming, and even more. Okay, guys, and that little part I like how that is. So I'm actually going to hold my mouse right here over 340, and I'm going to press the E key. And what that does is that just makes the end of your timeline scene, come to, right where your timeline indicators at, or your mouse is at. There is one more thing I do want to show you, and I know this has been an eclectic tutorial with stuff all over the place. you might sit there and say, okay, well, that's kind of cool, Ali, switching the cameras and stuff like that, but the buildings don't have any textures on them. So without the buildings having textures on them, I mean, why would we use it? Well, I think I have an answer for that. And you see this right here, and you can see the buildings there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Render Image, so we can see how this looks. And actually it looks better than I would have actually thought for as simple as it is. However, even with that being said, there actually is a mode in Blender where textures, they matter, but not so much because of this mode. And I actually really like this mode because I'm a big anime and animation fan, and that is Freestyle. If you haven't heard of it, it is a mode in Blender that basically makes your renders look like they are cartoons. I mean, it is awesome. And so very quickly, if you click your render button here, scroll down, you'll see this Freestyle button here. So if you click this Freestyle button, now your Freestyle is activated. So now what basically what's going to happen is when you go to render, your render is basically going to be your object with your objects with hard lines around them, very similar to an anime or an American style cartoon. I'll click right here so you can see. So first there's your render, and then Freestyle should kick in. Almost there. And there you can go. So you can see how it put these hard lines. And the one issue that we do have here is it did this to the trees. So if you're going to do Freestyle, then having the trees here will definitely cause you an issue. If anybody out there knows how to deal with this, by the way, with Freestyle, where you have a transparent image, how to make the hard lines not be around there, let me know. Though I don't think that there would be, because the whole thing of Freestyle is putting hard edges around the edge. Anyway, Freestyle is pretty cool, and it doesn't take away the need to texture things, but it does kind of lower them down. And just to show you one more thing with Freestyle, because you can see right here, it looks, I think it looks very cool. Just the whole Freestyle style in general, I really like. But right now it's very clean, so it looks cartoonish, but it's still extremely clean. One of the things we can do to make this look more like it was actually drawn, I'm going to close this, is you click this button right here, and then you look down to where it says your Freestyle option, so past the Freestyle line set. Okay, and if you keep looking down, you'll see this Freestyle line style, and this is what you want. So what you're going to do is you're going to look for the geometry tab, select geometry. You're going to look for where it says modifiers, and then add modifier. You're going to click here, and what you're going to choose is the Bezier curve. And what the Bezier curve does is it basically it makes the lines not look perfectly computer straight. Okay, so with that set up, I'm just going to click render image so you can see. You can see it's working its way up here. And now you can see the lines aren't perfectly straight. Like if you look here, you'll see they have a little bend to them. They're not perfectly straight up and down. It just makes it look a little bit more cartoonish. Okay guys, that's it for the tutorial. For all of you out there that like these videos and reshare them, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Alex, I saw you talking to some guy sharing my videos, and I really like that comment that you had said about the capital ship. So this is my USS Alex Otten, if that's how you pronounce your last name, capital Ship. This is in honor of you, Alex. Thank you for helping to support this channel. I appreciate it. And thank you to all the rest of you out there who helped to support this channel. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.